Today I want to tell you a story. This is a deeply personal story. This is a story where I experienced God work in my life unlike any other time in my life. See, sometimes for me, God works in these small, private ways, but sometimes, very occasionally, He works in these big fireworks in the sky kind of ways. And this story is one of those big fireworks in the sky kind of ways. I want to tell you the story for two reasons. The first reason is because as your pastor, I want you to know me better. But much more importantly, secondly, I want you to know God better. So this is a story that was 18 years in the making for my wife, Mary, and I. And it's a story of where we had a dream for something for our life. And it was a dream that over time we recognized we put it up on the shelf. And fear began to cover over it. And until we actually dealt with that fear, until we took that dream off the shelf and gave it to God, we didn't recognize this. But God showed us right there one thing about His character, that God is a show-off. See, God showed off in our life. And I believe that there are many of us here who have a dream. You have a dream that's been put up on the shelf and fear has been piling up on top of it. Dust has been gathering. And until you take that off the shelf and deal with those fears, you're not going to experience this. But I'm telling you, God is waiting to show off in your life like He showed off in ours. This story begins 22 years ago when it was 1997, and my wife and I, we were young, dumb, and in love. We got married, and life was good. Mary, she was a teacher. I had a great paying corporate job, and guys, best of all, I had hair. I mean, it was unbelievable. And yes, we like most young couples, we had a dream to have a family. Now, Mary is the youngest of 4 girls, and of her 3 sisters, 2 of them are adopted. I have a small extended family, only 3 cousins, and all 3 of those cousins are adopted. When Mary and I were first dating and newly married, we recognized a number of families who were building their family either fully or partially through adoption, and it piqued our curiosity. God was getting our attention. So I remember we went on this vacation when we were newly married, and we were on the beach, and we were walking on the beach, and the wind was blowing through my hair. And we were saying, gosh, what would it be like to have a family? I mean, this married, no kids thing is fun, but one day we'll want to have kids. And we said, do we want to actually have our own biological kids or try for that? Or do we want to adopt? And what we decided on that walk was we wanted to do both. We wanted to first start with our own biological kids. And so fast forward 5 years, that was our plan, and that's what we did. We had our first child in 2002, Hannah. What a joy. What a joy. And then 18 months later, we had our second child, Leah. What a surprise, actually. 18 months, and what a joy. I think it was like 2 years till my wife let me back in the bedroom after that 2 kids and 18-month thing. But we were a happy family, and we were excited, and we continued on with our life. But it was at that time that this dream of adoption began to stir in us again. See, I was leading our outreach work where we had a great partnership in South Africa, much like we do now, and we encountered a lot of kids there who had been orphaned through the HIV/AIDS crisis. And Mary and I said, gosh, we could provide a home for one of those kids. And so we began to pursue adopting a child from South Africa. Little did we know, though, that international adoption law prevented us from adopting that kid, and we were heartbroken. We were dejected. And so we took that dream of adoption, we put it up on the shelf, and it began to gather dust. Well, we knew that we wanted to continue growing our family, and we wanted more biological kids, and so fast forward 5 more years to 2008, and that's when we had our third child, our first son, Jeremiah, and it was amazing. And we were this family of 5, and we were growing, and we were having fun, and life was busy. And that dream of adoption had stayed up on the shelf. It was on the back burner. Well, fast forward 7 more years from that time. Mary was out to dinner with a group of girlfriends. They did this birthday club thing, and she was catching up with a friend named Shannon, who had 3 biological kids, and then she was telling the story that they had just decided to adopt an infant. And Mary came home, and she said, Tim, Shannon was telling me the story, and my heart's beating out of my chest, and I don't know. Should we actually pursue this dream we've been talking about for 18 years? Well, I was actually also at that time dealing with a lot of my own fears. See, I was dealing with the fears of how this would change our family. We had 3 kids who were in elementary and middle school. We were kind of in parenting easy street. And so going all the way back to Babyland, I thought, I can't do this. We also knew that there was a decent chance that if we adopted, we would adopt a child of color. And I'll be honest, I looked at all the prejudice in the world, and I just thought, I'm not sure if I can protect my child from that. This was a fear of mine. I also had my biggest fear, frankly, which was the finances. I knew the type of adoption we were going to pursue was going to have a cost way more than actually the money that we had. And so I was afraid of that, and those fears, they were piling up on top of me. But I took them to God, and God just said, Tim, take that dream off the shelf. Deal with those fears because I want to show off in your life. So I told Mary with my heart beating too, hey, despite all this stuff, let's go for it. We're in. And we did, and it was one of the scariest and most exciting decisions of our life. And so we decided to go all in. And so at that time, we said, we're going to look at all the different ways that we can pursue adoption. And so we looked at domestic or international. We looked at adopting a baby or a toddler or an older child. We looked at foster adoption, and we decided that we were going to pursue adopting a baby domestically. And so we got hooked up with this agency in Florida. Now, if you don't know, the way that adoption of infants works is this. If you are a prospective adoptive family, you put together what is called a profile. So it's basically if you're single, it's like the dating profile for Match.com, but to adopt a child. So it's like, here we are, and here's why we're so great, and here's why you should choose us to adopt your baby. And so those profiles are then presented to birth moms. And so whenever there is a case where there's a birth mom who, for whatever reason, knows that they are not able to provide the type of opportunity they want for the child, they make the most courageous decision in the world to place that child for adoption. And we learned of a story of this birth mom in Florida named Rachel. She was pregnant with a baby boy. And we just prayed about it, and we said, we think this is it. And so we presented our profile, and we waited for a few days as Rachel looked at that profile, ours, and some others. And we were on pins and needles, and we finally learned she chose us. And we were over the moon. It was absolutely the best decision we ever could have made. So we knew that this child was going to be a boy. And so if any parents around here, you're pregnant, you start thinking, what are we going to name the child? We started thinking the same thing for this baby boy. And Mary said, well, you know, Tim, our kids, they're all named Hannah, Leah, and Jeremiah from the Bible. I said, yeah. And she said, and they all end in A-H. And I said, they are? Oh, yeah, they are. Okay. And then she said, and this child's going to be 7 years younger than his nearest sibling, different race, going to be adopted. He's going to have enough reason to believe he's not part of the family. So we need to stick with this naming convention to make sure he knows he's a Senff. That's a good point. So we started scouring the Bible, looking for boy names that end in AH. And guys, I got to tell you, there are dozens. There are names like Isaiah and Jonah and Micah and Josiah. And so we loved different names, but the one that we really felt called to and drawn to is the name Noah. We prayed on that name, and we said, this is it. And so we told the kids, and we told the grandparents, and that was the decision. Well, our social worker said, all right, we know that you guys were matched. That was in August. And so we want to set you up for a phone call to get to know Rachel and her to get to know you in September. And so I remember coming home early from work, and we went up to our bedroom, and I closed the door, and we're like, kids, quiet. This is a really important call. And so our social worker patches us through to first meet Rachel over the phone. And the best way I can describe it, it's like an awkward first date of an arranged marriage, right? Because we knew this arrangement was happening, but we still were trying to make a great first impression on each other. And if you don't know, social workers often say, yeah, if you're going to adopt a child as a baby, it makes sense if you want to name them so that they know that, you know, they're a Senff. But birth moms will usually choose to name the child as part of their healing process of placing for adoption for the birth certificate. And then when you get custody, you change the name, and we understood that. So we're talking with Rachel, and she says, hey, listen, I know that you guys are going to change the name, and I get that, but I've chosen a name. Do you want to know what the name is for the birth certificate? And I'm thinking, not really, because then I'm just going to feel really guilty once we change the name. But Mary says, sure, we'd love to know. And I think, oh, gosh. And she says, listen, I know you're going to change the name, but the name I think he should be named is the name Noah. we just begin to cry. And you can tell Rachel's like, is everything okay? And we said, no, you just have no idea. That's the name of the thousands of names out there. That's the name we chose. So then Rachel begins to cry. And she said, I can't believe that because I just recognized that all your kids' names are from the Bible and they all ended in AH. And I just wanted to make sure that Noah knew that he was a part of this family. We all fell off the bed and started crying. See, God is a show-off, and he showed off in our life. That moment, it started us on this trajectory of seeing how God would show off in so many ways. See, our youngest child, Jeremiah, he was 7 at that time. We'd given away all our baby stuff. And we're like, how are we going to do this? But we had friends show up. We had strollers and car seats and high chairs and clothes. The financial price tag was big for us. And I thought, how are we going to do this? But people stepped up and they said, we want to contribute to this. We had a friend give their entire commission check to us. We had somebody who said, we're going to pay for plane tickets down. We had someone throw this photography fundraiser on our behalf. People blessed us in so many ways. Our kids said, we're all in. And they said, we want to save some money. And so they created the adoption jar. It was this mason jar we put on our counter, and they would climb up and stuff dollar bills in there. And they saved over $250 in the adoption jar. It was a lot of allowance and a lot of birthday money right there. We had all these fears. I told you about those, but Mary had multiple dreams where she woke up at night and said, I think God was trying to tell me those fears are not something that you need to worry about. See, God met us time and again. I don't have enough time to tell you all the things that happened. The best part, though, was that we got to build this relationship with Rachel. And Rachel began to see God's goodness. Now, this name thing of Noah happened in September, and she was due in January. And she said, hey, why don't you come down to Florida if you can make it down? I'd love to meet you guys before birth. And we said we'd love to. So we scrounged together some frequent flyer miles and we flew down to Florida and we met her there and we got to see her life. And so while we were there, she said, you know, this whole pregnancy and this relationship with you, it's just reminding me of something I didn't know is true, that God loves me. And God has a plan for me and for Noah. And I want to go all in with God. We said, wow. And she said, you know, when I read the Bible, I think, doesn't it say like when you want to go all in with God, you get baptized? And we said, yeah. And she said, Tim and Mary, would you baptize me? We said, are you kidding me? Of course we'll baptize you. So we go to the Atlantic Ocean and we baptize Rachel, pregnant with our son-to-be. She's due in 2 months, coming out of the water. God is a show-off. She then invites us to the delivery room when she is due in January. And we make it down for delivery, and we're there the whole time. I will have you note, I was on the north end of the stadium the whole time, okay? But this beautiful labor and delivery, Noah is born. The nurses, the doctors clean him off. And then they hand him to Rachel, and she hugs him and she kisses him. She says, I love you, Noah. And then she says, Noah, meet your mom and dad. And she hands him to us. God is a show-off. We decide in that room that though we know that children are adopted, popular psychology might say, oh, you know, they have this wound where they feel rejected. And we said that's not going to be true for Noah. And the three of us together, we said we're in fact going to ensure and ask God that Noah feels like the most loved child in the entire world. And so when we were all discharged from the hospital, we went to the exact same place on the Atlantic Ocean where Rachel was baptized, and the three of us, Rachel, Mary, and I, we dedicated Noah to the Lord right there. God is a show-off. See, we've continued to maintain this relationship with Rachel. I texted with her just yesterday. She's excited to check out this message because she's told the story as well. God is doing amazing things in her, and she's growing in her faith. And Noah is 4 years old. He is healthy, happy, and huge. And Anthony Munoz, he's coming after, yes, he is, the greatest lineman title ever. So why do I tell you this story? I know, frankly, it's risky. Because some of you may be tempted to think all adoption stories go like this. They don't. Or some of you may think, oh, God, he gives you whatever you want. Just rub him the right way like a genie and he'll pop out whatever you want. That's not the case. Or you may think, oh, Tim and Mary, they did all these things to deserve it. And if I just live right, God will pay me this wage. Nope. See, God is a God of grace. But I'm here to tell you, we have this dream to adopt. And it was this dream that we put on the shelf, and for 18 years, fears on top of fears on top of fears kept it there. But it wasn't until we took it off and we blew those away, until we gave it to God. It wasn't until that time that God showed us that he is a show-off. And I'm here to tell you that I believe God wants to show off in your life too. The book of Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, it says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine." Those dreams that you have, God's able to do immeasurably more than all you could ever ask, than all you could ever imagine. He's just waiting for you to ask him. I know this because he put this amazingly ridiculous little boy named Noah Samuel Senffs in our life. And so I'm here to tell you, I know some of you have these dreams. You have dreams that you put up on the shelf. In your life, fear has come on top of fear, and those dreams are there. And maybe you have a dream to get healthy, or to lose weight, or to get out of debt, or to break that addiction. Maybe you have a dream to get married, or to ask her out, or to start that business. Maybe you have a dream to adopt, or to foster a child, or to tutor someone. Maybe you have this dream for someone that you love so much that is so far from God. And you're afraid to pray. You're afraid to give that dream to God because you're not afraid that God's going to actually bring it to pass. Here's what I'm here to tell you. Whatever dream you have, throw away that fear and give it to God, because God is waiting to show off in your life like he showed off in ours. God can do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Thank you.